Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I'm going to show you how I paint a Screamer of Tzeentch. So the whole point of this painting project for me was that I have an airbrush and I've had it for years, and I very rarely use it because I'm not very good at it, to be honest. So I thought I really want to get better at using the airbrush because it is a nice tool and you can do some awesome effects with it. And people who are, masters of their airbrush, they just do some amazing things. And I want to expand my sort of painting toolbox. And I think I kind of want to include the airbrush, and so I need to get better at it, and I need to, practice. Because of course, you're just not great at anything just the first time you do it. And for me at least, using an airbrush is difficult because I have a difficult time finding out what kind of pressure I want to go with, and how to mix the paint and all sorts of things. So I thought a Screamer of Tzeentch would be a nice simple project, and I started off with a model that's been primed using a Wraithbone primer from Citadel, and then I sprayed it with some contrast paint, and this one is Sigwald Burgundy. Once I was happy with the base color, which took a little while because, as I said, I'm not great friends with my airbrush, I took out an ordinary brush, which was amazing. At least it's not loud. I don't know if it's just me being autistic or whatever it is, but I really hate the sound of the compressor. Even though I have a decent compressor, it's not actually that loud. Well, anyways, I took out my brush and I painted in a sort of irregular flaming pattern on the sides of the flamer. The idea was that I wanted to see if I could do, not really an object source lightning effect quite, but at least inspired by it. And so I wanted to have different degrees of light and shadow, which I wanted to create, as you can see here. First, like very hard definition of white painted with a brush, and then afterwards doing a sort of a gradient or transition with the airbrush. I decided to do this flaming pattern both because I thought it would be fun and because I'm not really in love with the very airbrushed look on some miniatures. You can see stuff where it's very clearly just an airbrushed surface going from dark to light, for instance. And it's just, I don't know, there's something about it that I don't really like. And perhaps it's just me being, a little bit envious because I'm not great at airbrushing. I don't know. Whatever it is, I thought I wanted to experiment with the airbrush and doing a pattern at the same time. So that's what I did. Then I tried spraying it using an orange spray or an orange color. And this is laser orange that I have from Huge Miniatures. And I do have an airbrush paint from them. I just completely forgot about that. So I tried mixing up my own, and I shouldn't have. I should just have used the airbrush color that they have sent to me. Because, as I said, I'm horrible at getting the consistency right. So you can see it took ages getting the orange paint done, and it wasn't great. Then I took another color, and that was Starfire Yellow, also from Huge Miniatures, which is a sort of neon yellow color. And again, I had completely forgotten that I had an airbrush version of this, so I tried mixing up my own, and it just took quite some time to get right. I then thought the whole miniature was just getting a little bit too pale, a little bit too bland. So I took some of the Sigwald Burgundy once more and applied that to the middle of the model so that you have a little bit more contrast in the color scheme. I didn't want it to be just all pale. I think it was just me not being really handy with the airbrush, because I think you should probably be able to do this with more precision. I don't have the skills to do that yet, but hopefully if I keep this up and I actually stay with it this time, perhaps I'll get better at some point. I then decided that I wanted to have a little bit more of a defined highlight in the flaming pattern. I thought it looked kind of cool, but also a little bit too difficult to tell actually what was going on. So I decided to just paint in some more highlights with a brush. And first I used the Starfire Yellow that I had also used in the airbrush. And after I had was done with that, I mixed in a little bit of white with the Starfire Yellow and used that for a final highlight, just to make everything pop just a little bit more. I still thought the whole thing looked just a little bit too bland and sort of uninteresting, just because it was there wasn't there wasn't enough contrast going on, so it was just sort of a pale flying thing, and it wasn't exactly the look I was going for. So I grabbed some Achillean green, and I used that in a thinned down version to add in some shadows. I used the undiluted version closer to the middle, and then I just put in more and more painting medium as I got closer to the edges, because I didn't want to ruin the effect of the flames and the shadows and the highlights that I had done with the airbrush. Then I highlighted the sort of scaly texture on the back here with some pulse wave pink, also from Huge Miniatures. I just did it in a sort of quite quick and rough fashion, as you can see here, just dabbing on a little bit of paint. I didn't want to spend too much time on this, because this wasn't a part of the painting process that I was sort of interested in experimenting with this project. So I just did it quite quickly, and well, you could probably have done a little bit more careful edge highlighting, but I just decided not to do that, because I wanted to get on with the next part of the project, which was the spikes and the teeth. And I also painted these using the Achillean green, just painting them all dark. I had originally planned on painting the spikes and the teeth in just a bone color, because I wanted the attention to be drawn to the pink and the yellow of the flaming designs. But I changed my mind when I saw the final highlights on the edge of the Screamer, and I thought, if I paint all these tiny little spikes in a bone color, it'll just look like it's a little bit of a mess, and the colors will look too similar. So I ended up going with green teeth and green spikes, as you do. For the first layer of highlights, I took some Gamma Green from Huge Miniatures. It's one of those fluorescent paints that I'm so fond of, and I mixed in a bit of the Achillean Green to have a sort of in-between color before I went, full neon on the spikes and teeth. And so the next layer of highlights, the one you can see I'm doing here, is just the Gamma Green on its own. And the last layer of highlights is Quantum Green, which is also from Huge Miniatures, and it's just sort of a lighter version of the green with a little bit more of a yellow tone to it. Usually I would finish a green paint job such as this with just a touch of the Starfire yellow that I also used on the edge of the Screamer. But I decided against it in this instance, just because, again, I wanted to make sure that the spikes and the teeth would stand out clearly from the sort of the skin of the Screamer. And here you can see the final result. I decided, as you can also see, to paint it with blue eyes, like pale blue eyes. That was, one of the few neon colors I had not used, and I wanted to make sure that they were painted using fluorescent paints so that they would also glow under a UV light. And I'm actually fairly happy with this paint job. I mean, there's definitely room for improvement, but I think overall it was a fun experiment, and it was fun doing something with my airbrush. And even though I had some troubles along the way, it was still fairly successful, I think. And then I saw it under a UV light, and I sort of completely changed my mind, because honestly, guys, I think this one looks so much cooler than the original paint job, or the paint job under a normal light. I mean, this is actually sort of the effect I was going for. I wanted like a flaming design that looked like it sent sort of hot tendrils from the edges of the Screamer on into sort of the core of its back. And I don't think the original photo really gives you that feeling. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it looks fine, and I'm happy with what I did, and I'm happy with, having painted something with my airbrush for once. But this looks so cool. I think so. I mean, I'm not being very humble here, but I think this looks really cool, and I want to be able to paint this effect under a normal light. I get that the teeth probably won't. I mean, that would be a little bit difficult perhaps to achieve, but I think painting it like this on the skin, that is actually what I want to be able to do, and I'm not. And now I just that bothers me a little bit because it would be so cool. So if you have any ideas or suggestions on how to go from this to this under a normal light, I would be most grateful. That would be so much fun and so awesome. And I am definitely willing to put in quite a couple of 100 hours of practice into my airbrush if I at some point would actually get to do this, because this is cool and way beyond my current abilities to paint with ordinary paints under an ordinary light, but it just looks really cool. Oh well, it's always great to have something to aspire to, right? So before you leave, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the wonderful people who support Dice and Demons over on Patreon. So thank you so much to Thomas Madsen, Scott Broadway, Jordan Hollands, Andrea Correa, Anthony Polcastro, Queen's Wolf, JJ Walls, Gwenael, Mola Mola, TJ Kubiak, Mando Project, Starcon85, S. Beer, Economicus, Firelord21, and Elliot Philby. If you would like to join these amazing people in supporting Dice and Demons, you can do so over on Patreon, and I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. You can also support Dice and Demons by buying paints from Huge Miniatures through my affiliate link or my discount code that will give you 5% off while at the same time supporting the channel. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I do my very best to get back to every single person who writes to me there. It can slip from time to time, so don't take it personally if I don't get back to you, but I do my best to respond to every single comment I get. Also remember, you can follow me as Dice and Demons over on Twitter and Instagram if you want to stay up to date on my painting projects. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!